folks, welcome back to another Civilization 6 video. And in this video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We are going to be doing a side-by-side playthrough comparison of two civs that have very strong early games. Nubia, led by a Monitor, and Gall, led by Ambiorix. We'll be playing on Deity difficulty, Wetlands map, everything else left default, Heroes and Legends, Monopolies and Corporations, and Secret Societies on, and the map and game seed are 45 if you are interested in playing this map. And the reason we selected this map is because the starting positions were relatively equal. They don't start out in the same spot, but they both have a civilization that's pretty close in proximity, enough that they can take advantage of their early game unique units with some early war and aggression, so that they're both pretty equal in that regard. So just for fun, you pick your favorite. If you want, post down in the comments below who you think will perform better, maybe what turn you think they're going to win on, and what victory type. So let's go ahead and take a look. So in terms of raw resources, if you look at the Gall playthrough over there, you can see that Gall has a little bit of an advantage because they are going to get to start on a 2 food, 2 production, and 1 culture tile, where Nubia is going to end up starting on a 2 food, 2 production, and 1 gold tile. So a little bit of an advantage to Gall there, but you can see if you look up to the northeast on Nubia's map, that they have a nearby natural wonder. If you are familiar with the natural wonders, that additional 2 culture on that tile is going to be Petiti, which is a very strong natural wonder, and they'll be able to settle over there with their first additional settler. So Gall's unique unit is a warrior replacement, while Nubia's unique unit is an archer replacement. So Gall's unit is probably going to be a little better at taking cities, while Nubia's unit is going to be better at taking out other units. So that will be interesting to see who is more successful at sieging here in the early game, if they try and expand via taking over cities. So we can see that both Gall and Nubia are coming across early tribal villages here on turn 5. But they probably will not get the same thing. So Gall got Gall got Sun Wukong, and then also ended up with a recon unit, which is a very good find, while Nubia ended up with experience, so not as good. So they are going to diverge here a little bit because their governor selections are going to be different given their civilization abilities. So because Gall needs to expand his borders and build districts that are not in the first ring adjacent to the capital, he is going to take Liang, while Nubia is going to go with Magnus for the additional chop value. Now we see the little RNG blessing there for Gall. They picked up an additional tribal village, while Nubia did not, on approximately roughly the same turn. I think that was like turn 7-ish, so that's really quick for a second tribal village, and Nubia did not get that same advantage. Now, fortunately, it was just an astrology boost, so I don't think it's going to make a huge gap in terms of Gall having an advantage there, and Nubia is going to pick up another tribal village just a couple turns later than Gall. Now we see on the Gall side of the playthrough that he is benefiting there from the King of the Eubrones ability that gives him culture equal to 20% of the cost of a military unit when it's produced. So that's going to give him an earlier than normal access to policy cards, so typically +5 to barbarians, and then a little quicker towards the Pantheon. So that is an early game advantage for Gall that Nubia will not have. Even though the Gall has that ability, we aren't immediately going into another military unit with Gall, and that's because Gall is going to need some builders to expand borders there, because he can't build districts next to the city. So Nubia is picking up their second tribal village now to get caught up to Gall, and they also pick up a recon unit. If you recall, that is what Gall got on the first tribal village, so they both got sort of 1 meh tribal village and 1 recon unit. So obviously the earlier recon unit is more beneficial than the later one, but they weren't that far apart. So Nubia and Gall have now both met their nearby civilizations, Nubia with Korea and Gall with England, led by Victoria. So I'd say they're relatively the same distance apart, but Nubia has a little bit more of a movement advantage in getting there because it's mostly flat land to get to the neighbor, while Gauls is mostly mountainous. I mean, mostly probably due to his starting bias. So, but again, that cuts both ways because the hills are easier to defend on, and the AI tends to play and move their troops badly, and they will make attacks into highly defended terrain. So Nubia will be more vulnerable in those flatter lands, especially with the floodplains that have negative defense. Now, Gaul is setting up here to pick up a third tribal village, so that is pretty early to be picking up a third tribal village. So good luck on the part of the Gaul side of the playthrough there. But again, that'll be dependent on what he gets out of said village, which is I believe archery boost there. So not really anything that he wouldn't have gotten probably anyway. So if he'd have been able to kill a barbarian with his slinger first, then he would have been able to benefit off of that hut maybe a little bit more. I'm going to flip the play speeds a little bit to adjust because Nubia's play is showing us a little bit ahead on turn 19, and they are able to get their first settler out where Gall did not go the immediate settler in his build order, and now we see Nubia also picked up a tribal village with a builder unit, so that gives them 2 builder units and a settler on turn 20 or so. So Nubia is going to obviously be taking that settler and settling over by Petiti. Now that doesn't have a freshwater source, but the amount of culture that is generating is gigantic, and I expect that Nubia's performance is going to pull quite a bit ahead once they get that second city down, just by the amount of culture that they're going to be generating. It's probably going to go up more than 100% of what they are generating now. Actually, it most certainly will because you get like I think start out with like 1.2 or 1.5 or something culture like that. You get 0.3 per population. So there's only 2 population in the main city. So working one of those tiles around Petiti is going to give Nubia a lot of culture. Gall, on the other hand, he had an additional tribal village to clear out, which snagged 30 gold and the military tradition boost. So, a little bit of benefit for Gall there, and still a little bit of ways off from getting that first expansion settler down. It's going to be like another 5 turns for Gall there. So Gall's not going to be able to get that first settler built till around turn 25 or so, and it's going to be a little bit harder of a walk probably to get to a spot to settle due to the terrain. So you're going to be quite a bit behind Nubia in getting that second city down. Nubia should be benefiting off of their second city by about turn 24 or so, while Gall is still going to be plugging away and building that settler. Now, they're both still sort of building up. They haven't taken any aggressive moves yet towards their nearby AI neighbors, and the AI neighbors haven't taken any aggressive moves towards them. We've got some barbarian activity on the Nubia playthrough, but it doesn't interfere with settling, and Nubia is going to start churning out additional ranged units out of that second city as well. And if you'll recall, Nubia has 30% production bonus to ranged units, so they're going to be able to crank those out pretty quick. Gall does have his settler out now and is opting to try to forward settle on England, but it's going to take a while to get there because there is quite a bit of hilly and rainforesty terrain around there, if you can call it that. Now, if you compare the two maps, it does look like Gaul has access to a few more amenities in terms of luxury resources. Uh, they both settled on a luxury resource, and then Gall has an additional die, and actually looking at it, they have about it's about equal actually because they both have access to the same one that they settled on, which will only be good for purposes of industry, and then they both have an additional one that they can access via irrigation. Now, one of the things with Nubia is that they're going to want to build that Nubian pyramid on that one open desert square. So they are going to need to get another settlement pretty quickly down to the area to their southeast that has that stone that they can build a quarry on. Now, the advantage the Gall playthrough has is that they forward settled their first city to give them sort of a forward garrison position on the offense against England, where Nubia put their city in the back instead of towards Korea. So it will not be as useful for generating and pushing out troops, but that said, it's generating a ton of culture. So Gall is selecting their pantheon on turn 33, which isn't early enough to get religious settlements, obviously. And there is not a ton of other good choices. Not enough high appeal tiles to really warrant taking the appeal one. And there is not enough of a particular type of feature in terms of resources that we're going to build on to take some other one like a pasture based one or fishing boats or anything. So probably going with River Goddess as sort of just a neutral one here. That in the long term that will give amenities and housing to cities that have holy sites along the a river. So I think that will be a bad choice. It's not great, but it will be an overall benefit throughout the game. So the meantime, on the Nubian side there, we see that we're having quite a bit of barbarian activity up towards our first expansion city, but it seems to be pretty much under control, mainly due to the narrow lanes that they have to pass through, working as choke points. But we can also see that Nubia on turn 32-ish is getting ready to get another settler out. So they're going to have a second expansion city to bring their total of cities to 3, and we mentioned that we needed that in order to get close enough to a stone source because we need to get masonry, and then they are also reaching their pantheon on roughly the same turn. I think maybe a turn earlier than Gall did. So just like with Gall, it was too late to get religious settlements, and also just like with Gall, it's not going to benefit a lot from Our Lady of the Reeds and Marshes. But unlike Gall, they have a lot of appeal, so Earth Goddess is going to be the choice here. Remember that Gall went with the one that gives +2 housing and +2 amenities for holy sites next to rivers. So we're skipping ahead to about turn 46 or so here, and Gall has beaten Nubia to the punch on the first aggressive move. They actually were able to set up and get the denouncement in 5 turns ahead, so just a formal war for 100 grievances, and they have gone ahead and attacked their nearest neighbor, England. Still only 2 cities to Nubia's 3. Nubia has not declared war as of yet, but they are hitting a golden age, and they are going to be able to take a dedication here, and they're going to actually take Exodus of the Evangelist here, which is not a good one to take. I don't recommend it. I don't know. For some reason, I like getting a religion, and in this play, we're going to go ahead and grab it and maybe try and leverage Crusades as part of our build here. Nubia still needs to get bronze working if they would like to get the iron sources revealed on the map, and they are now just upgrading to Petiti archers, and that was intentional because they had already hit the Golden Age threshold. I intentionally delayed upgrading into Petiti archers to get the era score on the next era because there was no point in accumulating more era score by upgrading to Petiti archer if I was not yet at war. So it looks like Nubia is now going ahead to declare war as well. So Nubia kicks off their war two turns later on turn 49 as compared to 47 for Gall. So Gall's got a little bit of a head start, but hasn't really capitalized on it too much so far. But he is in a good position in terms of having a lot of good defense tiles, a good mix of archers and the warrior replacement unit. And it looks like Gall has also taken Sanguine Pact and is bringing that vampire ahead. They did not hit a golden age, so they just are getting the normal age dedication, so nothing really of consequence there. But they are pretty much decimating England's front line, and England has no walls thus far. As we mentioned earlier, the land is flatter between Nubia and Korea, so Nubia actually is advancing more quickly on that bordering city. But because they are using archers and only have one melee unit there, they're not going to be able to bring that city down as fast because archers have a penalty to sieging, where I think melee units do too. I don't recall, but I think the archer ones is more. Archers do less damage to cities, if I recall correctly. So I don't think that Nubia, despite being closer in proximity to attacking the city, is going to bring that city down as fast as Gall will bring their nearest city down. Now, thus far, that statement is being proven wrong. There are quite a bit more warrior troops resisting in England, and Korea is not resisting at all. So those ranged units, despite doing less damage, are just free to attack the city. So they're getting a lot of attacks in, where Gall is having to deal with a lot more units, which the regular archers obviously are not going to be as effective as the petiti archers in that term. So it's sort of ironic that Gall has a lot of unit resistance, which he's not as good at combating, and then Korea has no resistance up against the petiti archers. So Nubia has recruited Hamiko as their first hero. So Hamiko is aura that gives combat damage has been nerfed a little since the last patch, down from 10 to 5, but it's still valuable for flipping those city states nearby to sort of have some extra troops or levying them to have direct control over them. So Nubia is going with the Hamiko aggression strategy, which is still solid even with the nerfed aura. Gall, on the other hand, does not yet have a hero, but they do have the vampire unit out, but they are struggling to get any damage in on the city. They did manage to finish that a third settler to get their number of cities in line with what Nubia has as soon as they can get that city settled. Now, interestingly enough, Gall has actually been forced back a little bit, has lost a little ground, but his archers are unharmed. But in order to preserve his melee front line and hopefully not have to respawn his vampire, he has fallen back to a more defensive position there. But I think he's still in a strong position militarily. Nubia hasn't really had to fall back at all, but they haven't made a ton of progress because there is a horseman now fortifying that city, which is making the archers do significantly less damage now with the higher garrison defense score. But Nubia is now snagging up some suzerainties on the nearby city states, and that is going to additionally pressure Korea because even though Nubia is not controlling them, they are still going to be another source of military that's going to be putting pressure on the Korean military and the cities. So they'll have to protect that. And you can see that Yangsan is actually getting pretty beaten up by the Anshan suzerainty there. The Anshan warrior units have that city down to about half. On the Gall side of the playthrough, he is picking up some ground again here. He's cleared out a lot of those troops. They are bringing forward a spearman, but it looks like that we don't have as much of a melee front as we would like. Just the vampire and the pretty hurt unique warrior replacement unit. The other warrior is just off chasing a unit, and the other one's off exploring. So maybe not making the best use of those troops right now. But now there is a chariot that looks like it just wants to die. So the vampire is getting buffed up a little bit here and trying to take a little bit more of aggressive position and get that city surrounded. So we're on turn 58 on both the Gall and the Nubia playthrough, and so far my prediction is wrong. Nubia looks like it is just about to take that first city, probably in the next turn here, and barring some kind of really odd occurrence. So Nubia, I think, pulling ahead here so far. So Gall is getting ready to settle their second expansion city, so third city total, and that will bring them up to the same number of cities as Nubia has, and probably in a little better position as far as using them as a forward base and as far as the cities being defensible. But that said, Nubia is just about to take one of the Korean cities here, which will bring them up to 4 total cities. So they'll be pulling ahead in the city count once again. Now, at this point, Gall actually has yet to do any damage to Birmingham, while Nubia is, as we said, just now on this turn taking Gwangju there. So that's an interesting turn of events. Gall started the war 2 turns earlier and just now got his first damage in on Birmingham, whereas Korea has now just lost their border city to Nubia. So Nubia has the city, has one about 60% health warrior, 6 full health Petiti archers, and then 1 farther back injured Petiti archer, and they are now also founding their religion. So, and if you looked there too, for some reason, Korea has a settler unguarded that it looks like Nubia is also going to get to steal that as well. So that is interesting. Looks like Gall is investing a little bit of extra time in pillaging. It looks like specifically trying to pillage that holy site to block more great profit points from England. So in terms of that, and there's very unfortunate timing for walls there. So Birmingham was just about to fall, and they got walls up. So that's going to be a significant obstacle with no siege weapons. But the vampire and the upgraded or the replacement warrior unit should be of some assistance over just having regular warriors hitting those walls. And again, you can still damage through the walls. The city is low enough that it will probably go down before getting all the walls down. But at the same time, it's still going to be regenerating as well because we don't have enough melee units to put it into siege. Now, Nubia has taken Crusade as one of their beliefs, and they are also generating a decent amount of faith off of taking the Earth Goddess Pantheon and having a lot of high appeal tiles, as well as some additional faith from that Nubian pyramid. So that will be able to pay for some missionaries for them to actually be able to capitalize on that Crusades belief by trying to spread it to the cities that they are attacking. Meanwhile, Gall is successfully managing to bring down the Birmingham defenses with just 3 units, which is pretty impressive. But just 1 archer, a vampire, and the unique Gall unit. And they did start building the unique industrial zone unit. So now that they're at that point in the tech tree, I think that the Nubia advantage is going to dissipate because they aren't going to get a big boost like Gall is going to get from the unique industrial zone where he's going to be able to hop up to the man-at-arms unit. Nubia's already gotten their power spike from the Petiti archers. So Gall is taking Birmingham on turn 66. The playthrough for Nubia on that side is only on turn 61, so 5 turns behind, and they took the city a few turns ago. So um, Nubia ahead in terms of city count, I think. Still, no, actually, they have the same city count, but Nubia has also stolen a settler from Korea. So they are going to now get another city as soon as they can find a place to settle that. So they are in pretty good position. Plus, still no walls for Korea, while England has walls on at least one of the remaining target cities. Also, some good fortune on the Nubian side that Korea did not snag up that iron source on the border between the two cities, so it was able to grab that within the territory of the city that was just taken. So we didn't have another iron source on Nubia, so that is pretty beneficial. Minimal military presence left here for Gall, so it's looks like it's going to be maybe a little difficult to press on the siege. Gall did push out another settler, though, so is going to be able to catch up on the city count, but they didn't steal a settler and get it for free like Nubia did, so that's a little bit of that's a resource drain in comparison to just a free settler. On the Nubian side, we are on turn 64, and on the Gall side, we are on turn 68. And so right now, I think that Nubia has the much stronger remaining force. Let's see it by the military count. So we've got 253 total military count for Nubia, and if we compare that to Gall, he only has 83 total military count now, so quite a bit different. So based upon the composition of the defenses here in these particular playthroughs, we can see that Nubia was able to retain almost all of their military strength after capturing their city, where Gall sustained some losses and will have to rebuild some of that. So despite the lesser damage to the city presented by the ranged units, the fact that they just aren't taking damage was significant enough to really swing that in favor of apparently the Nubian archers being the better sustainable force. But that said, Gall has just deployed Beowulf, and that didn't really up his military strength, so to speak, as far as like raw score. But that Beowulf is one. He's going to be able to eliminate any ranged units defenses that are inside the city walls. And by the way, if you're playing that, don't try and click the unit. Just click the tile if they're in the city. If you click the unit, you'll try and run in an attack, even if you are clicking Beowulf's ability first. But the other thing is there was no walls on London, and they put the walls on the city with less population, which is a less attractive target than London, which has no walls and more population and districts. We're going to see with Nubia here their lack of ability to put the city under siege, having all ranged units, if that's going to hamper them here. Now, the Gall aren't really going to be able to put the city under siege either, but the melee units, one, I believe the unique Gall unit actually has a bonus versus districts, which the city center counts as a district, so that that will be able to push through faster, with the regeneration of the city having less impact because you're just doing more overall damage and are going to get through that faster and deal with the regeneration less. We're having a little bit of a loyalty issue on the Nubian side holding that city, but it looks like there's no governor in the captured city, so that should be just resolved via using a governor. It looks like Gall is positioning here to get some pillages in. That's a smart move. You want to obviously pillage. It's a disproportionate amount of resources early game from taking those pillages. Probably more valuable, really, even than taking the city, as long as you're not sacrificing a bunch of units to do it. So Gall is in is pretty good position now. He's rebuilt enough of those units that it shouldn't be much of a problem to take London. The Nubian forces are about the same as they were in terms of uh, unit count, but again, it's heavily biased towards ranged. Now, with that ranged ability, they're basically just forcing any Korean unit resistance out, but they are taking the city down pretty slow. Whereas Gall, we can see on his side of the playthrough, he is absolutely hammering London and is probably about to take it there. And Beowulf just sacked London, so Gall's got a much slower start, but is now ramping up that military campaign and appearing to be the more effective playthrough here. Now it is turn 73 on the Gall side of the playthrough as opposed to turn 69 on the Nubian side of the playthrough. So Nubia is um, a few turns behind in terms of what you're seeing there. So it looks like they are actually still going to beat Gall to the punch on it in terms of number of turns to take that city. So in terms of these playthroughs illustrating the military strength, I mean, obviously you can see that both civs are very strong militarily, and I didn't really actually see one demonstrate much, I guess, superior capacity military so far. So thanks for watching so far, and we'll try and pick up this playthrough comparison a little later.